Tonight, we step into the shadows of the past, where the echoes of lives lost whisper truths too dark to ignore. 6 stories, 6 tragedies, 6 mysteries unraveled or left hauntingly unresolved. From a secluded beach in California to the vibrant streets of Bogotá, from a quiet Kansas home to the chilling waters of Connecticut, these are tales of love betrayed, trust shattered, and justice pursued through the fog of time. Settle in, close your eyes, and let the rain carry you into the heart of these true crime stories. This is Shadows of the Past, Volume 13. Our first story begins on a moonlit beach, where 2 young souls saw adventure, only to meet a fate that would remain a mystery for nearly 2 decades. Part 1, The Murders of Lindsay Cutshaw and Jason Allen, 2004, California. It was August 14, 2004. The air was warm, the Pacific Ocean lapped gently against the shore, and the world seemed full of promise for Lindsay Cutshaw and Jason Allen. They were young, in love, and bound by a shared faith that lit their path. Lindsay, just 22, had a smile that could warm a room, her roots in Ohio grounding her with a quiet strength. Gasa 12 Gary, Jason 26, carried the rugged charm of his Michigan upbringing, his heart set on a life of adventure with the woman he planned to marry. Together they were unstoppable, counselors at a Christian summer camp, avid hikers, dreamers who saw the world as a canvas for their love. And so that weekend, they set out from their home in San Francisco for a spontaneous escape, a chance to explore the wild beauty of California's coastline. Their destination, a secluded beach far from the noise of the city, where the stars would be their only witnesses. They packed light sleeping bags, a few supplies, their trusty car humming with the excitement of the open road. Lindsay's laughter filled the air as Jason teased to her about her love for stargazing. They were young, they were free. They had no idea that this would be their last journey together. 5 days later, on August 19th, a hiker stumbled across a scene that would haunt the dreams of an entire community. There, on that remote stretch of sand, Lindsay and Jason lay lifeless in their sleeping bags. Their bodies were cold, their faces frozen in a peace that belied the violence that had stolen their lives. Each had been shot in the head at close range, the bullets fired from a rare Marlin .45 caliber rifle, a weapon so distinctive it would later become a key to unlocking the truth. Their belongings, money, phones, jewelry, lay untouched beside them. This wasn't a robbery. This was something far more sinister. The discovery sent shockwaves through San Francisco. Who could have done this, and why? Lindsay and Jason were the kind of people who left light in their wake. Devout, kind, the sort who'd stop to help a stranger. The police combed the scene for answers, but the beach offered little. An empty beer bottle glinted in the sand, a potential clue, but tests later proved it unrelated. Footprints were swallowed by the tide. The murder weapon was nowhere to be found. The only certainty was the brutality of the act. 2 shots, 2 lives erased in an instant. The investigation began with a frantic urgency. Detectives interviewed friends, family, coworkers, anyone who might shed light on the couple's final days. Lindsay's parents, still in Ohio, spoke of her boundless optimism, her plans for a September wedding. Jason's brother recalled his love for the outdoors, his protective devotion to Lindsay, but no one could name an enemy. No one could imagine a motive. The case grew colder with each passing day, the headlines fading as leads dwindled. Yet, the police refused to let it rest. They chased every thread, no matter how faint. A local drifter was questioned, his erratic behavior raising suspicions, but his alibi held. Another lead pointed to Joseph Henry Burgess, a transient linked to a similar crime in Canada. His name sent a chill through the investigation. A man capable of such violence could easily have crossed paths with Lindsay and Jason, but Burgess was killed during an unrelated police encounter, and the trail went cold again. The case file grew thick with notes, theories, and dead ends, but no answers. Years passed. The beach where Lindsay and Jason died became a place of quiet pilgrimage for those who remembered them. Their families held on to hope, but the weight of grief grew heavier with each unanswered question. The police, too, felt the burden. Detectives retired, new ones took their place. But the case remained a stubborn shadow, refusing to yield its secrets. By 2010, it was officially a cold case. a file gathering dust in a San Francisco precinct. But cold cases have a way of coming back to life when you least expect it. In 2017, a seemingly unrelated crime cracked the case wide open. Sean Gallen, a man with a troubled past, murdered his own brother in a fit of rage. The details of that crime aren't our focus tonight, but what came next changed everything. As police dug into Sean's life, they found messages on his brother's social media, cryptic, chilling hints that Sean, his brother, his ex-girlfriend, and even his father knew something about the 2004 murders on that beach. They had kept silent for 13 years, bound by fear or loyalty, but the truth was clawing its way out. Confronted with this evidence, Sean's facade crumbled in a sterile interrogation room. Under the weight of those messages, he confessed. His voice was flat, detached, as he recounted the night he ended Lindsay and Jason's lives. He hadn't known them. He hadn't planned to kill them. He claimed he was driven by voices, dark, commanding whispers from what he called space. That night, high on drugs and lost in his own fractured mind, Sean had wandered the beach with a Marlin .45 rifle, a family heirloom he'd stolen from his father. He saw the couple sleeping, their silhouettes soft against the sand, and the voices told him to act. He crept closer, his heart pounding, the rifle heavy in his hands. Lindsay and Jason never woke. 2 shots rang out, muffled by the crash of waves. Sean collected the bullet casings, meticulous even in his madness, and hid the rifle with his father's help. He walked away, leaving the couple as if they were merely sleeping, their dreams snuffed out in an instant. No motive, no reason, just the chaos of a mind unmoored. The confession was a bombshell, but it raised as many questions as it answered. Why had Sean's family stayed silent? How had he evaded suspicion for so long? Detectives retrace his life, piecing together a portrait of a man plagued by mental illness and substance abuse. In 2006, Sean had briefly been a suspect, his erratic behavior catching the police's eye, but without evidence, they'd let him go. Now, the truth was undeniable. The rifle was recovered from a storage unit, its serial number matching the bullets that killed Lindsay and Jason. Sean's fingerprints were on the casings. The case was closed, but the scars it left were far from healed. In 2019, Sean Gallen stood trial. The courtroom was heavy with grief as Lindsay's and Jason's families faced the man who had stolen their futures. Sean's defense leaned on his mental instability, painting him as a victim of his own mind, but the prosecution was unrelenting. This was no spur-of-the-moment act. Sean had hidden the evidence, lived among them for years, his silence a second betrayal. The judge's gavel fell with finality. 2 consecutive life sentences without parole for the murders, plus 94 years for his brother's death. Sean was sent to a special prison unit for the dangerously unstable, a place where the voices in his head would be his only company. For Lindsay's and Jason's families, justice was a hollow victory. No sentence could bring back the laughter, the love, the life they'd lost. The beach where it happened remains a quiet place, the waves washing away the echoes of that night, but the memory of Lindsay and Jason lingers, their faith, their dreams, their unbreakable bond. They were taken too soon, victims of a randomness that defies understanding. And yet their story reminds us that even the coldest cases can find light, that truth, however bared, has a way of rising to the surface. As we leave this story, the rain falls heavier, a reminder of the weight of loss. But our journey through the shadows isn't over. Next, we travel to Bogotá, where a rising star met a tragic end in a suitcase, her dreams silenced by the one she trusted most. Part 2, The Murder of Valentina Tres Palacios, 2023, Bogotá, Colombia. In the neon-lit nights of Bogotá, Colombia, the air hums with rhythm, ambition, and dreams. It's a city where music weaves through the streets, where young souls chase stardom under the glow of club lights. In January 2023, one such soul was Valentina Tres Palacios, a 21-year-old DJ whose beats electrified the city's nightlife. She was a force, vibrant, talented, her dark eyes sparkling with the promise of a future that seemed boundless. Born in 2001, Valentina grew up in Bogotá's working-class neighborhoods, her love for music a flame that burned brighter with every passing year. By her late teens, she was a name on the rise, her sets drawing crowds, her social media buzzing with fans who adored her energy, her style, her unstoppable drive. Valentina's life was a whirlwind of gigs, late nights, and the thrill of creation. But beneath the glamour, she carried a quiet vulnerability. Like many young women, she longed for love, for someone to share her dreams. In 2021, that someone appeared in the form of John Poulos, an American she met online. He was 34, a Wisconsin native with a charming smile and a knack for saying the right things. Their connection was instant, a digital spark that grew into late-night calls and shared secrets. John promised her the world, trips, support, a life together. He funded her cosmetic procedures, whispered plans of marriage, and seemed to be the partner she'd always dreamed of. But love, as we so often learn, can hide a darker fate. By January 2023, Valentina and John were living together in a sleek Bogotá apartment, a space filled with her music and his promises. To the outside world, they were a perfect match, a rising star and her devoted supporter. But behind closed doors, cracks were forming. John's charm masked a controlling streak, a jealousy that simmered beneath his affection. He didn't like her late-night gigs, the way men looked at her in clubs, the independence that defined her. He hired a private detective to track her movements, his trust in her eroding with every beat she dropped. Valentina, caught in the glow of love, didn't see the warning signs. She didn't know that the man who held her close was plotting a betrayal so cruel it would shock a nation. On January 22, 2023, the music stopped. Valentina Tres Palacios vanished from Bogotá's vibrant streets, her absence a sudden, deafening silence. Her friends, used to her constant posts on Instagram and Snapchat, grew worried when her accounts went dark. Her phone went straight to voicemail. Her gigs were canceled without explanation. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. The next day, a garbage collector in a quiet Bogotá neighborhood made a discovery that turned worry into horror. Tucked inside a blue suitcase, sealed with tape and discarded in a trash container, was Valentina's body. She was dressed in pajamas, her face bruised, her neck marked by the cruel grip of strangulation. The city that had danced to her music now mourned her loss, and a question burned in every heart. Who could have done this? The police descended on the scene, their flashlights cutting through the early morning haze. Forensic experts examined Valentina's body, piecing together her final moments. She had been strangled, likely in her sleep, the trauma to her head suggesting a struggle cut short. The suitcase was a chilling detail. Its deliberate placement spoke of calculation, not panic. This was no random act. This was personal. Detectives turned their focus to the one person closest to Valentina, John Poulos. He was her boyfriend, her confidant, the man who shared her bed. But where was he now? John's absence was the first red flag. He wasn't at their apartment, wasn't answering calls, wasn't anywhere in Bogotá. The police searched their home, finding signs of a life interrupted. Valentina's DJ equipment still plugged in, her clothes scattered as if she'd planned to return. But there was something else. A void where John's belongings should have been. He had packed up and fled, leaving behind a trail of digital breadcrumbs that would become his undoing. Surveillance footage from their apartment building showed a man dragging a heavy suitcase down the hall in the early hours of January 22. The same suitcase police suspected that now held Valentina's body. He loaded it into a car, drove to the trash container, and discarded it without a backward glance. The investigation moved swiftly. Fueled by a city's outrage, Valentina's friends came forward with chilling details. One shared a Snapchat video from January 21 showing Valentina laughing in their apartment, John's voice faintly audible in the background. Another provided WhatsApp messages where Valentina hinted at tension with John, his jealousy, his accusations, his need to control her every move. Her phone, recovered near El Dorado International Airport, revealed a final, desperate attempt to reach out, though no calls connected. The pieces were falling into place, and they all pointed to John Poulos. Detectives learned more about the man behind the charm. John Poulos, born in 1987, had a history that Valentina never knew. Court records from Wisconsin revealed prior charges of violence against women, incidents brushed off or settled quietly. Friends described him as obsessive, a man who craved control and bristled at defiance. In Bogotá, he'd isolated Valentina, discouraging her from seeing friends, insisting she rely on him. He'd even bragged about hiring a detective to monitor her, a fact that made her uneasy, but didn't break her trust. To Valentina, he was still the man who loved her. To the police, he was a predator whose mask had finally slipped. The manhunt for John Poulos spanned continents. On January 23, as Bogotá reeled from Valentina's death, John boarded a flight to Panama, his movements frantic, his social media accounts scrubbed clean. He thought he could outrun the truth, but the world was watching. Interpol issued alerts, and on January 24, John was detained at El Dorado International Airport as he attempted to board a flight to Turkey. His capture was a moment of grim triumph, but his defiance only deepened the wound. He denied everything, claiming procedural errors, insisting he'd been framed. The evidence, however, told a different story. Up into Bogotá, the police built an airtight case. The suitcase matched one John had brought from the U.S. Its brand and color unmistakable. Surveillance footage placed him at the scene of the disposal, his car's license plate a damning link. Forensic analysis confirmed Valentina's DNA inside the apartment, along with traces of John's presence in the hours before her death. The WhatsApp messages painted a picture of a relationship unraveling, John's accusations growing sharper, Valentina's responses tinged with exhaustion. Her friends testified to his controlling nature, his outbursts when she defied him. The motive was as old as time: jealousy, possession, a man who couldn't bear to lose what he thought he owned. John Poulos sits in a Bogotá prison now, awaiting trial, facing up to 50 years behind bars. In Colombia, where femicide is a growing crisis, his case is a lightning rod, a symbol of the violence that too many women face. Valentina's family, shattered by her loss, has become a voice for change, demanding justice, not just for her, but for every woman silenced by a partner's rage. Her mother weeps for the daughter who filled their home with music. Her brother vows to keep her memory alive. Bogotá's clubs, once alive with her beats, now play her tracks in tribute, a bittersweet echo of a life cut short. But the story of Valentina Tres Palacios is more than a tragedy. It's a warning, a stark reminder of the dangers hidden in love's promises. She trusted John Poulos, believed in the future he painted, and paid the ultimate price. Her death sparked outrage, yes, but also action. Marches, vigils, calls for stronger protections against domestic violence. In the digital age, her case shows the power of technology to uncover truth, from surveillance cameras to fleeting Snapchat clips. Yet it also reveals the fragility of trust, how quickly a dream can become a nightmare. As we leave Bogotá, the rain falls softly, carrying Valentina's music into the night. Her story is a haunting melody, one that lingers long after the final note. But our journey through the shadows continues, and next, we step into a quiet Kansas town where a pizzeria owner's kindness hid a darkness that led to his brutal end. Part 3, The Murder of Harold Saskell, 2014, Kansas. In the heart of Kansas, where the plains stretch wide and the days move slow, there was a man named Harold Saskell. Hal, to those who knew him. Born in 1961, Hal was a Florida transplant who'd found his place in a quiet town, running a pizzeria that was more than just a business. It was a gathering spot, a slice of warmth where locals swapped stories over pepperoni and cheese. Hal was the kind of man who remembered your order, who slipped an extra slice to kids with shy smiles, who carried himself with the easy charm of someone who'd seen the world but chose simplicity. By 2014, at 53 years old, he was a pillar of the community, a churchgoer whose life seemed as steady as the Kansas horizon. But every light casts a shadow, and Hal's shadow was deeper than anyone knew. He lived alone in a modest home, his marriage long dissolved, his days filled with the rhythm of dough and sauce. Yet there was someone else in his life, a young woman named Sarah Gonzalez Milan, just 18, whom he called his stepdaughter. To outsiders, their bond was touching. Hal, the generous guardian, offering shelter to a girl who'd faced a troubled past. Sarah worked at his pizzeria, her quiet demeanor a contrast to Hal's booming laugh. They were family, or so it seemed. Beneath the surface, though, a darker story was unfolding, one of control, manipulation, and a rage that would erupt in blood. On January 17, 2014, the town's quiet routine scattered. Police were called to Hal's home after a neighbor reported an eerie silence. No morning chatter, no lights, no sign of life. Officers arrived to a scene that turned their stomachs. Hal Saskell lay dead in his bedroom, his throat slit, his hands and feet bound with zip ties, blood pooled beneath him stark against the hardwood floor, and on the wall above a single word was scrawled in his blood. Freedom. The brutality was staggering, the message chilling. Empty bottles littered the room, alongside a phone and laptop that didn't belong to Hal. His car was missing from the driveway. This was no random crime. This was personal, deliberate, and drenched in intent. The discovery sent ripples of fear through the community. Hal was beloved. Who could harbor such hatred for him? The police sealed off the house, forensic teams sweeping for clues. The zip ties suggested premeditation, the word freedom a taunt or a confession. Neighbors whispered about Sarah, the girl who lived with Hal, noting she was nowhere to be found. Was she a victim too, or something else entirely? Detectives interviewed those closest to Hal, piecing together his final days. His employees spoke of his kindness, his church friends of his faith. But when pressed about Sarah, their answers grew vague, their eyes uneasy. Something wasn't right. The investigation zeroed in on Sarah Gonzalez Millan. Born in 1994, Sarah's life had been a storm of trauma. Her parents' divorce left her adrift, her childhood marred by abuse from a neighbor and a later assault by another man. By 16, she was working at Hal's pizzeria, a vulnerable girl drawn to his offer of stability. Hal took her in, calling himself her guardian, promising to guide her through a world that had been unkind. But his generosity came with strings, dark, suffocating strings. He plied her with drugs and alcohol, demanded sexual favors, and kept her in debt for expenses like cosmetic surgeries, claiming she owed him $116,000, 0 cents. To Sarah, Hal wasn't a savior. He was a captor, his home a gilded cage. As police dug deeper, Sarah's absence became a glaring red flag. Her troubled past, marked by violent outbursts and a diagnosis of dissociative identity disorder, painted a complex picture. Neighbors recalled seeing her with Hal, her expression often blank, her voice subdued. When detectives learned Hal's car was missing, they issued a nationwide alert, suspecting Sarah had fled. 11 days later, on January 28, 2014, the trail led to Florida. There, in a small coastal town, police found Hal's car parked outside a motel. Inside was Sarah, alone, with a cache of weapons, cash, and the weight of a terrible truth. Sarah's arrest was swift, but her story was anything but simple. In a stark interrogation room, she confessed, her words a torrent of pain and rage. She admitted to killing Hal, her voice trembling as she recounted years of abuse. He had manipulated her, controlled her, turned her life into a debt she could never repay. The drugs, the demands, the constant threat of his power. It had all built to a breaking point. On January 17th, Sarah snapped. She drugged Hal with sleeping pills, waited for him to collapse, then bound him with zip ties. As he lay helpless, she took a knife and slit his throat, the act both vengeance and release. The word freedom was her final statement, a declaration of escape from the man who chained her soul. But Sarah's confession went beyond the act itself. She spoke of her fractured mind, of personas within her, alternate identities that whispered violence. She admitted to darker impulses like killing animals in moments of anger, a chilling glimpse into a psyche shaped by trauma. Her diagnosis of dissociative identity disorder complicated the narrative. Was she a cold-blooded killer or a victim driven to desperation? Detectives listened, their faces grim, as Sarah described hiding the knife, stealing Hal's car, and fleeing to Florida, hoping to vanish into a new life. The laptop and phone in the room, she said, were hers, left behind in her haste. The police corroborated her story with chilling precision. Forensic evidence confirmed the sleeping pills in Hal's system, the knife's blade matching his wounds. The zip ties bore Sarah's fingerprints, the blood on the wall, her grim signature. But the investigation uncovered more, a computer in Hal's home containing illegal pornography, evidence of his predatory nature. It painted a picture of a man who hid his darkness behind a smile, preying on a girl too broken to fight back. The town reeled, their image of Hal shattered. The pizzeria, once a beacon of community, closed its doors, its warmth tainted by betrayal. Sarah's trial in 2014 was a battle of perspectives. The prosecution painted her as a calculated killer, her confession proof of intent. They pointed to the word freedom, the zip ties, the stolen car, signs of a mind that planned and executed with chilling clarity. The defense countered with her trauma, her mental illness, her years under Hal's control. They argued she was a victim, her act a desperate bid for survival. Expert witnesses testified about dissociative identity disorder, explaining how Sarah's alternate personas could have driven her actions, blurring the line between choice and compulsion. The courtroom was a storm of emotion. Hal's friends mourning their loss, Sarah's advocates pleading for mercy. In the end, the judge delivered a heavy verdict: life in prison with parole eligibility after 50 years. Sarah, just 20 years old, would spend her life behind bars, her youth swallowed by the consequences of that January night. But the story didn't end there. In 2016, an appeal brought new hope. Sarah's legal team presented evidence of Hal's abuse. The pornography, the financial manipulation, the testimonies of those who'd seen his control. The court, moved by the depth of her suffering, reduced her sentence to 25 years, acknowledging the complexity of her case. Today, Sarah remains incarcerated, her future uncertain, her mind still a battleground of pain and personas. For the town, Hal's death was a wound that never fully healed. The pizzeria stood empty, a ghost of happier days. Those who knew Hal grappled with the duality of his legacy, a man who fed their families yet destroyed one of his own. Sarah's story sparked debates about justice, about victims who become perpetrators, about the systems that fail to protect the vulnerable. Her diagnosis raised questions. How do you judge a mind that isn't whole? How do you balance punishment with compassion? There were no easy answers, only the lingering ache of a tragedy that claimed more than one life. As we leave this Kansas town, the rain falls heavier, washing away the echoes of that bloody night. Hal Sasko's story is a reminder that monsters don't always lurk in the shadows. They can smile, serve you pizza, and hide their darkness in plain sight. Sarah's story asks us to look deeper, to see the scars beneath the surface, to question where justice truly lies. But our journey through the shadows isn't over. Next, we sail to a haunted lighthouse in Connecticut, where a young couple's adventure became a mystery that still haunts the waves. Part 4, The Disappearance of Sophia McKenna and Death of Spencer Mugford, 2018, Connecticut. In the spring of 2018, the coastal town of Groton, Connecticut buzzed with the quiet hum of a New England summer approaching. It was a place of salt-kissed air, where sailboats bobbed in the harbor and the horizon promised endless possibilities. For Sophia McKenna and Spencer Mugford, two young souls caught in the thrill of new love, Groton was a canvas for adventure. Sophia, born in 1996, was a 22-year-old massage therapist with a restless spirit. Her dark hair framed a face that could light up with laughter or cloud with the weight of her struggles. She lived with bipolar disorder, a condition that made her highs electric and her lows profound. Spencer, a transplant from Florida, was her co-worker, his easygoing charm a perfect match for Sophia's vibrant energy. Together they were a spark, a couple who lived for the moment, their romance a whirlwind of shared dreams and daring plans. On May 27, 2018, those plans led them to a place steeped in legend, the Ledge Light, a lighthouse perched on a rocky outcrop in Long Island Sound. Locals whispered of its haunted past, ghostly figures, unexplained noises, a keeper who never left. For Sophia and Spencer, the lure of the paranormal was irresistible. They weren't content with ordinary dates. They craved the thrill of the unknown. That morning, they set out in a small, weathered sailboat, ill-equipped for the choppy waters, but brimming with excitement. Sophia's Snapchat captured their journey. A shaky video of her laughing, the lighthouse looming in the distance, Spencer's voice teasing her about ghosts. It was a moment of pure joy, a snapshot of youth, untamed. They had no idea it would be their last. By evening, Sophia and Spencer were gone. Their boat was found days later, drifting 12 kilometers from the lighthouse, empty but for a single clue: Spencer's t-shirt tied to the mast as if to anchor it. Sophia's car was discovered on a nearby university campus, her phone inside, its battery dead. The town waited for news, hoping for a prank, a misunderstanding, anything but the truth. On June 8th, hope turned to dread. Spencer's body washed ashore, his death ruled a drowning, no signs of foul play. But Sophia was nowhere to be found. Her absence was a void, a question mark that hung over Groton like a storm cloud. What happened on that lighthouse? Was it a tragic accident or something far darker? The police launched a search that gripped the community. Coast Guard boats scoured the sound, divers braved the cold depths, volunteers combed the shorelines, but the Ledge Light offered no answers. Its cameras meant to monitor the rocky outcrop were out of order, their lenses blind to the events of that day. The lighthouse itself, checked too late, was empty, its narrow ledges and steep stairs silent. Evidence was scarce, a palm print on the boat, fibers that didn't match the couple's clothing, but nothing conclusive. Sophia's phone held no outgoing calls, only a final unconnected attempt to reach her mother, Michelle. The Snapchat video, shared with friends, became a haunting relic, replayed endlessly for clues that weren't there. Detectives turned to those closest to Sophia and Spencer, seeking a thread to unravel the mystery. Sophia's mother, Michelle, spoke of her daughter's adventurous spirit, her love for Spencer, her battle with bipolar disorder that sometimes led to impulsive choices. Spencer's colleagues described him as steady, devoted, a man who'd follow Sophia anywhere, but as interviews deepened, a name surfaced that shifted the investigation: Austin, Sophia's ex-boyfriend. Their relationship had been a tempest, 3 years of passion marred by arguments, infidelity, and violence. Austin was volatile, his temper fueled by alleged steroid use, his obsession with Sophia unrelenting even after their breakup. The story of Sophia and Austin was a saga of red flags. They'd met in 2015, drawn together by a shared intensity. But Austin's jealousy was a constant shadow. He'd lash out, his fists leaving bruises Sophia hid with long sleeves. Michelle witnessed their fights, her heart breaking as Sophia forgave him time and again. In May 2018, everything changed. Sophia discovered Austin's cheating, a betrayal that shattered their bond. On May 8th, she ended it, kicking him out of her life. Austin didn't take it well. Neighbors saw him that night, pounding on her door, screaming threats, his rage echoing through the quiet street. Sophia, shaken but resolute, called the police. Austin was arrested, a restraining order issued the next day. Sophia's testimony was a litany of fear, past assaults, photographic evidence of her injuries, his relentless stalking. The order barred Austin from her home, though Sophia, in a moment of guilt, later softened its terms. But Austin's anger simmered. Witnesses recalled him at a hotel publicly threatening Sophia, his words laced with venom. When she began dating Spencer, Austin's fury reignited. On May 26, the day before the lighthouse trip, he claimed to have spent the day with Sophia, defying the court order. Friends doubted his story, noting his strange behavior. A 3 a.m. message claiming he was at a gym, a time when no gym was open. His alibi was shaky, his actions suspicious. The police leaned into Austin as a person of interest. His behavior after the disappearance raised eyebrows. He joined the search efforts, hiring a private helicopter, distributing flyers, proclaiming Sophia his girlfriend of 3 years on social media, but his posts focused on their past, not her absence, striking many as odd. At a memorial for Sophia on July 10, he stood beside Michelle, later sharing a now-deleted post, "Rest in peace, baby, we'll meet again soon." The words chilled those who read them. When a YouTube channel aired a video about Sophia's case, Austin scrubbed his social media of their photos as if erasing her from his life. His calm demeanor during police interviews, his dwindling involvement in the search, only deepened suspicions. The added evidence against Austin was circumstantial. No fingerprints tied him to the boat or lighthouse. His alibis, though questionable, couldn't be disproven. Rumors swirled. Some said his family had ties to local police, even that a relative was married to the chief overseeing the case. But these claims, fueled by a friend with a criminal history, lacked proof. The investigation stalled, trapped in a web of theories and dead ends. Michelle, desperate for answers, speculated about abduction or human trafficking, but no ransom demand surfaced, no witnesses came forward. The bustling holiday crowd at the lighthouse that day saw nothing, or nothing they deemed worth reporting. Another theory emerged, one the police leaned toward: an accident. Sophia and Spencer, inexperienced sailors, had taken a flimsy boat into turbulent waters. They reached the lighthouse, tied the boat with Spencer's t-shirt, and explored its haunted halls, but the boat drifted away, carried by the current. Spencer, a strong swimmer, might have tried to retrieve it, misjudging the cold water's bite. Exhausted from the day's journey, he could have drowned, his body carried by the tide. Sophia, a poor swimmer, might have jumped in to save him, or, in a panic, fallen from the lighthouse's narrow ledge while searching for him. Her phone, lost in the water, would explain the failed call to her mother. Alcohol, if they'd been drinking, could have clouded their judgment, turning a daring adventure into a tragedy. But this theory left gaps. Why was Sophia's car on the university campus? How did her phone end up there? The palm print and fibers hinted at another presence, but forensic technology couldn't match them. In 2019, a glimmer of hope flickered when an independent detective found bones near the shore. The police dismissed them as animal remains, foregoing costly analysis. and the lead vanished. Sophia's family, led by Michelle, kept her case alive through a Facebook page, searching for Sophia McKenna, sharing pleas and brochures. A strange incident weeks after her disappearance, a money request from Sophia's hacked social media account, raised hopes, then faded into another dead end. Today, Sophia McKenna remains missing, her fate a mystery that haunts Groton shores. The ledge light stands silent, its ghosts no closer to speaking. Austin was never charged, his role, if any, lost in the fog of speculation. Some believe he followed Sophia that day, his rage boiling over, perhaps with help from friends to cover his tracks. Others cling to the accident theory, a tragic misstep in a moment of youthful recklessness. The truth lies somewhere in the waves, or perhaps in the heart of a man who walked away too easily. Michelle still searches, her love for Sophia a beacon that refuses to dim. The town watches the water, waiting for answers that may never come. As we leave the lighthouse, the rain whispers of secrets unkept, of a girl whose laughter echoes in the wind. Sophia's story is a reminder that some mysteries defy resolution, their questions lingering like footprints washed away by the tide. But our journey through the shadows continues, and next we step into a quiet English town where a Valentine's Day promise became a nightmare of betrayal. Part 5. The Murder of Joanne Nelson, 2005, Hull, England. In the coastal town of Hull, England, known formerly as Kingston upon Hull, life moves with the steady rhythm of the tides. It's a place of working-class pride, where families carve out their dreams against the backdrop of Yorkshire's rugged beauty. In 2005, Joanne Nelson was one of those dreamers. Born and raised in Hull, Joanne was a bright spark, a young woman whose laughter could fill a room, whose kindness left a mark on everyone she met. She was in her early 20s, with a love for sports like netball and lacrosse, a sharp mind that excelled in school, and a heart that yearned for a family of her own. By February 2005, she was working at an employment center, helping others find their path, her days filled with purpose and possibility. Joanne's life wasn't without its challenges. She tried her hand at nursing, but the emotional weight of patient suffering proved too heavy. Dreams of working abroad flickered, then faded as she chose to stay close to her parents, Jean and Charlie, and her sister Katie. Hull was her home, its familiar streets a comfort, but there was another presence in her life. One that promised love, but hid a darkness she couldn't yet see. Paul Dyson. At 27, Paul was a security guard, working the late-night shifts at bars and clubs. He was charming, confident, with a physique honed by hours in the gym. To 19-year-old Joanne, he was a rebellion against her sheltered upbringing. A man who offered excitement and escape. Their romance began in 2002, a whirlwind that swept Joanne off her feet. Paul was older, experienced, a contrast to her youthful optimism. They moved in together, first with Paul's mother, then into a house of their own, a space they filled with dreams of a shared future. But love, as it so often does, began to show its cracks. Paul's charm masked a temper, his need for control clashing with Joanne's independent spirit. She loved order, he thrived in chaos. She wanted partnership, he demanded dominance. Their arguments grew sharper, their home a battleground of unspoken resentments. By early 2005, the tension was palpable, a storm waiting to break. On February 14, 2005, Valentine's Day, a day meant for love, Joanne Nelson vanished. She didn't show up for work at the employment center, a break from her reliable routine that set alarm bells ringing. Her phone went unanswered, her plans abandoned. She missed her best friend's father's funeral, a commitment she'd never break. And her sister Katie's 19th birthday, a celebration she'd planned with care. Her absence was a void, a sudden silence that chilled her family and friends. That evening, Paul Dyson called the police, his voice trembling as he reported Joanne missing. He claimed he'd last seen her asleep that morning, that she was gone when he returned from work. It was as if she'd vanished into thin air, leaving only fear in her wake. Hull's police force sprang into action, launching a search that gripped the town. Officers, military personnel, and volunteers scoured the streets, parks, and waterfronts, their flashlights cutting through the February gloom. Joanne's parents, Jean and Charlie, were frantic, their hope warring with a growing dread. Katie, just 19, clung to the belief that her sister would walk through the door, laughing off the worry. But as days turned to weeks, the truth grew harder to ignore. Joanne wasn't coming back. The question wasn't just where she was, but who had taken her from them. Suspicion quickly fell on Paul Dyson. He was the last person to see Joanne, the man who shared her life, her home, her secrets. Detectives interviewed him, noting his calm demeanor, his rehearsed answers. Paul threw himself into the search, joining volunteers, granting press interviews, his face of mask of concern. He spoke of Joanne with love, insisting he could never harm her, but there were cracks in his story. Reporter's phone call caught him off guard. His denial of wrongdoing, too vehement, too practiced. A televised interview raised red flags. Paul's eyes didn't close when he spoke of Joanne. A subtle sign of detachment and no tears betrayed his grief. Then there was the physical evidence, nail marks on the back of his hand, faint but unmistakable, as if someone had fought back. The investigation deepened, led by Detective Ray Higgins, a tenacious officer who sensed Paul's facade. Surveillance footage from local stores showed Paul on February 14th calmly purchasing garbage bags, rubber gloves, and disinfectant spray, items that took on a sinister weight in hindsight. Neighbors reported casual conversations with Paul that day, his talk of getting a pet jarringly normal. But it was Paul's mother who broke the case open. Unable to bear the guilt, she came forward with a devastating truth. Paul had confessed to her, his words a chilling admission of what he'd done. On February 20, just 6 days after Joanne's disappearance, Paul was arrested, his carefully constructed lie unraveling. In the interrogation room, Paul's composure shattered. He confessed, his voice low, his words a cascade of horror. On Valentine's Day, an argument had erupted in their home, one of many, but fiercer than ever. Joanne, fed up with Paul's sloppiness, criticized his failure to help with chores, her words cutting deep into his pride. When she asked for help with the washing machine, Paul's shame turned to rage. The argument escalated, Joanne declaring her intent to leave him, demanding they sell their house for £10,000 sterling, 0 pence. It was a breaking point. In a fit of fury, Paul strangled her with his bare hands, his strength overpowering her desperate struggle. Joanne's life ended on the floor of their home, her dreams silenced by the man she'd trusted. What followed was a chilling display of calculation. Paul didn't panic. He didn't flee. Instead, he orchestrated a cover-up with terrifying precision. He bound Joanne's limbs, wrapped her body in the garbage bags he'd bought, sealed them with duct tape, and placed her in her own car. In broad daylight, he drove 75 miles to Bradbury Woodland, a remote forest in North Yorkshire. His demeanor so calm it chilled those who later reviewed the footage. There, among towering pines, he dug a shallow grave, covering it with twigs to hide his crime. He returned to Hull, resumed his routine, even faked a phone call with Joanne to throw off suspicion. It was a performance worthy of a psychopath, a term Paul had once used to describe himself while working the clubs. The police, guided by Paul's confession, embarked on a grueling search. For 6 weeks, Detective Higgins and his team combed 3 counties, their hope fading with each empty lead. On March 24, 2005, after 39 days of agonizing uncertainty, they found her. In a solemn operation, officers uncovered Joanne's body wrapped in plastic, hidden beneath branches in Bransby, near York. The sight broke their hearts. A young woman who brought joy to so many, reduced to a secret buried in the earth. For Joanne's family, it was closure and devastation, the confirmation of their worst fears. Paul's trial in November 2005 was a reckoning. The courtroom was heavy with grief. Joanne's loved ones staring down the man who'd stolen her. Paul stunned everyone by pleading guilty, sparing the family a protracted battle but offering no remorse. His lawyer, Harry Barl, admitted there was no excuse for the crime, only the cold reality of Paul's actions. The prosecution laid bare his history of violence, prior assaults on ex-partners Carrie Thompson and Jenny Mary Clark, his steroid use fueling his rage, his chilling composure after the murder. Witnesses from his security days recalled his boasts of brutality, his pride in his father's own dark past, a manslaughter conviction from decades before. Paul Dyson was no ordinary man. He was a storm of violence waiting to strike. November 8, 2005, the judge sentenced Paul to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 16 years. It was a heavy blow, but for Joanne's family, it wasn't enough. The pain of losing Joanne was a wound that time couldn't heal. Her parents mourned the family she'd never built. Katie, the sister who'd been her confidant. The town of Hull grieved too, their quiet streets forever marked by the loss. But the story took a bitter turn in 2019 when Paul, at 45, was transferred to an open prison and recommended for day release. The parole board cited his engagement in self-awareness programs, but for Joanne's family, it was a betrayal. Katie spoke to the media, her voice trembling with loss and anger, unable to fathom why a man who'd taken so much could walk free so soon. Joanne's story is a haunting reminder of the monsters who hide in plain sight, of the love that blinds us to danger. Paul Dyson was no stranger lurking in the shadows. He was the man Joanne shared her life with, the one she trusted to build a future. His violence was a secret kept behind closed doors, his charm a mask that fooled even those closest to him. The nail marks on his hand, the garbage bags, the fake phone call, they were pieces of a puzzle that revealed a truth too cruel to bear. Joanne's death sparked conversations about domestic violence, about the signs we miss, the systems that failed to protect. Her memory lives on in Hull, in the hearts of those who loved her, in the quiet moments when her laughter echoes through their dreams. As we leave this English town, the rain falls softly, carrying Joanne's light into the night. Her story is a call to listen, to see, to act before love turns to loss. But our journey through the shadows isn't over. Next, we travel to a California town where a child's sleepover became a nightmare that shook a nation. Part 6, The Kidnapping and Murder of Polly Klaas, 1993, Petaluma, California. In the quiet town of Petaluma, California, 1993 was a year of small-town simplicity. Nestled in Sonoma County, Petaluma was a place where neighbors knew each other, where kids rode bikes until dusk, where life felt safe. For 12-year-old Polly Klaas, it was a world of possibility. Born in 1981, Polly was a shy girl with a radiant smile, her quiet nature hiding a passion for the stage. She loved theater, her school plays and community musicals casting her in lead roles that let her shine. Her dreams were big, to become a Broadway actress, to fill theaters with her voice. At home, she lived with her mother, Eva, and younger sister, Annie, after her parents' separation. Her father, Mark, remained close, his new partner a welcome part of Polly's life. It was a harmonious balance, a childhood filled with love and promise. On October 1993, Polly's world was simple joy. She invited 2 friends, Jillian and Kate, for a sleepover at her Petaluma home, a regular ritual of giggles and secrets. The girls spent the evening picking Halloween costumes, playing games, their laughter echoing through the house. Eva, battling a headache, took sleeping pills and went to bed early, telling the girls to wake her if they needed anything. Around 11 p.m., Polly suggested bedtime. Fetching an inflatable bed so they could all sleep together, it was a moment of innocence, a snapshot of youth untouched by fear. But as Polly opened her bedroom door, that innocence shattered. A man stood there, unmasked, a knife gleaming in his hand, his presence a violation of everything safe. At first, the girls thought it was a Halloween prank, their laughter nervous but hopeful. The man's anger erased that hope. He barked orders, his voice low and menacing, demanding to know who lived in the house. When they pointed to Polly, he focused on her, his intent chillingly clear. He forced Jillian and Kate into another room, tying their hands and feet with cords, covering their heads with pillow. Count to 1,000, he told them, promising he'd only take Polly for a short time, that she'd be back soon. Then he was gone, Polly with him, the house falling silent except for the muffled sobs of 2 terrified girls. It took them 30 minutes to free themselves, their screams waking Eva, who called the police in a panic. The Petaluma Police Department descended on the Klaas home, their sirens cutting through the night. Jillian and Kate, shaken but unharmed, described the intruder in vivid detail, his face, his clothes, his knife. Their unmasked glimpse allowed officers to create a sketch, a haunting portrait of a man who'd walked into a child's bedroom and stolen her away. Evidence was sparse. Footprints matched the family's, but unfamiliar fibers on the carpet hinted at an outsider's presence. A palm print was found, though 1993's forensic technology couldn't analyze it fully. A piece of silk fabric, cut as if from a garment, lay in Polly's room, its patterns a potential clue. A single hair not belonging to the family was collected, but DNA analysis was too primitive to yield answers. The search for Polly Klaas became one of the largest in U.S. history. Over 4,000 volunteers joined law enforcement, combing neighborhoods, vacant lots, and sprawling estates. The FBI arrived, their resources amplifying the effort. Police questioned neighbors, teachers, anyone who might have seen something. Some recalled a strange man wandering the area that night, but no one had thought to call for help. The sketch was plastered across Petaluma, then the nation as media frenzy grew. Actress Winona Ryder, a Petaluma native, offered a $200 0 cents reward. Her tearful plea broadcast to millions. 3 California residents took an unprecedented step, posting Polly's photo and the suspect's sketch online, reaching 25 million people through early internet forums, a first for law enforcement. Days turned to weeks, hope fading with each empty lead, the fibers, the palm print, the silk, they led nowhere. A call from a girl claiming to be Polly, traced to a teenage prankster, crushed her father's heart. The police chased drivers resembling the sketch, interviewed school staff, tested car mats against the fibers, but found no matches. Fear gripped Petaluma. Parents locked their doors, children stayed inside, the town's innocence stolen alongside Polly. The search was relentless, but the clock was ticking. After 24 hours, the chances of finding Polly alive plummeted, a statistic that haunted every officer and volunteer. On November 28, nearly 2 months after Polly's abduction, a breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A woman in rural Sonoma County called police, reporting suspicious items on her wooded property. A piece of silk matching the one from Polly's room, ballet ties Eva had mentioned missing, and duct tape. She recalled an incident on October 1. A man whose car got stuck in mud near her home. Her nanny had seen him, noting his angry eyes, his nervous sweat. The woman, fearing confrontation, called police instead of approaching. Officers arrived, helped the man free his car, and let him go, unaware that Polly was likely in his back seat, alive but hidden. His name was Richard Allen Davis, and that encounter would haunt law enforcement for years. Richard Allen Davis was no stranger to crime. Born in 1954 in San Francisco, his childhood was a crucible of violence, his parents' abuse leaving scars that never healed. By 12, he was abandoned by his mother, left with an irresponsible father who often vanished. Richard turned to theft, street fights, and reform school, his teenage years a spiral of rebellion. At 17, a violent robbery landed him a choice: reform school or the army. He chose the military, but a dishonorable discharge followed his misconduct. By his 20s, his rap sheet grew: robbery, kidnapping, a 15-year sentence reduced to 1 year on parole. Friends whispered of a missing girl, Marlene, last seen with Richard at a party, though police deemed her disappearance voluntary. When Polly vanished, Richard was on probation, a drifter with no fixed address. On November 13th, 1993, fate caught up with him. A routine traffic stop for drunk driving revealed Richard's identity, his photo matching the sketch from Polly's friends. Officers arrested him for violating probation, treading carefully to avoid tipping him off. At the station, they revealed the true reason: Polly's kidnapping. During a grueling interrogation, Richard broke. He admitted to abducting Polly, his confession a chilling recounting of that night. High on drugs, he'd driven to Petaluma looking for a house to burgle. Spotting an open window at the Claus home, he climbed in searching for valuables. When Polly opened her bedroom door, fear in her eyes, he made a snap decision to take her. Richard's account was a descent into horror. He put Polly in his car, drove aimlessly, then stopped at a vacant lot where he sexually assaulted her. When the woman's nanny saw him on her property, Polly was still alive, hidden in the back seat. The police who helped free his car unknowingly missed a chance to save her. Later, Richard drove to a highway, strangled Polly, and buried her in a shallow grave. On December 4th, 1993, he led police to the spot, a grim patch off of Sonoma County Road. Polly's body, found 2 months and 3 days after her kidnapping, confirmed strangulation as the cause of death. The assault of final cruelty. The evidence was overwhelming. Richard's palm print matched the one in Polly's room, his car's carpet fibers identical to those at the scene. Another piece of silk was found in his vehicle, tying him to the crime. Polly's friends identified him without hesitation, their courage sealing his fate. At trial in 1996, Richard's defense was feeble. His attempt to blame Polly's father with baseless abuse claims enraging the courtroom. On June 18th, he was convicted of kidnapping, rape, and murder. In August, the judge sentenced him to death. A verdict met with somber relief. Richard's appeals dragged on, a 2006 suicide attempt, failing to end his life. Today, he remains on death row, his execution delayed by legal maneuvers, a lingering shadow over Polly's memory. Polly Klaas's death changed Petaluma forever. The town's innocence was gone, replaced by locked doors and wary eyes. Her case spurred national change. The 3 strikes law in California, inspired by Richard's recidivism, aimed to keep repeat offenders behind bars. Polly's father, Mark, became an advocate for child safety, His grief, a catalyst for reform. The Search, one of the first to harness the internet, set a precedent for missing persons cases. Yet, for Eva, Annie, and those who loved Polly, no law could heal the loss. Her theater dreams, her shy smile, her boundless potential, they were stolen by a man who saw her as nothing more than a target. As we leave Petaluma, the rain falls heavy, a lament for a child taken too soon. Polly's story is a stark reminder of the evil that can lurk in the ordinary, of the fragility of safety, of the power of a community's resolve. It asks us to hold our loved ones closer, to fight for justice, to never forget the light that was Polly Klaus. The rain softens now, its rhythm a quiet farewell to the shadows we've walked. 6 stories, 6 lives, 6 truths that linger in the dark. From Lindsay and Jason's moonlit tragedy to Valentina's silence beats, from Hal's hidden darkness to Sophia's unanswered fate, from Joanne's betrayed love to Polly's stolen innocence, these tales are more than crimes. They're mirrors, reflecting the fragility of trust, the weight of loss, the relentless pursuit of justice. Some found answers, others remain echoes in the void, but all remind us to listen, to see, to act, before the shadows claim another soul. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the past. If these stories stirred your heart, leave a like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below. The rain will fall again, and with it, more tales from the shadows. Until then, sleep soundly, but keep one eye open. This is Shadows of the Past, signing off.